and that is the Raiders versus the Dragons. You were very close to looking at the Dragons for that one, but you've opted to go Raiders. I've also gone Raiders. They've gone for a couple changes as well in the back line. So obviously Horsburgh is now gone as well. So one change in the forwards. So Simonson comes in as well as Oldfield. Curtis Scott dropped to the bench. That's a very suspect decision for me. Hudson Young comes into the second row, and Tapane goes to loose from the second row. I mean, the Raiders. If you're gonna drop Scott from your backs, you drop him altogether. You don't put him on the bench, because now you've got Havili on there, so you're kind of forced to play a playmaker, and now you got Scott as well, who can realistically only play centre, which means that at some point you are going to have to pull Oldfield or Simonson. It's a guarantee.
So Havili, whilst he can be a playmaker, has been playing lock and prop this year. So that's why I think they can and will afford to have someone, like Curtis Scott, who can, I say can be just a player, but as you mentioned, has only played centre throughout his career on the bench. And to be quite frank, Curtis Scott sitting on the bench is why I chose the Raiders. If he was playing and starting, I was going the Dragons, because Zach Lomax would have had a field day. I still think it's going to be close. I am more than willing to take the Dragons on the line on this one. I think they're starting to come into a little bit of form. Yes, they haven't been against some of the premier teams in the competition, but you mix the fact that Dufty, Norman Clune, McInnes, Hunt, that variable spine is really starting to click, along with the fact that, yes, Canberra scored 24 points last week, but realistically, should they have scored more than 10 or 12? No, probably not. It's a tough one. I'm going with the Raiders purely because I think they tightened up that back line by dropping Curtis Scott, and they do have depth in the forwards. But I would not be shocked at all if the Dragons got up in an upset here. Like I said, if that spine can play as they have been, and Vaughan and Frizzell can produce, then anything's on the cards here.
Yeah, I mean, I backed Raiders before the team list had come out, just because I think, and I said it in the round review as well, I think that when you come up against a team that's only got 14, 15 fit players and still on the bad end of a scoreline, I don't think it does you too kindly. I mean, I look at the Dragons lineup. Saab is still in there. He didn't do enough for me last week. Sims comes in as Jacob Host drops out through injury. I look at the forwards. I mean, your only real talent in your forwards, you got Vaughan, Frizzell, Fuimeona, Merrin just back from Super League as well. Kerr and Sims, Ford. You look at the Raiders pack, and it's a bigger, more physical pack. You've still got a bit of mobility in there if Havili's going to come in and play lock or even prop. McInnes is going to go to lock 20 minutes in. It's the go-to play at this point, so it becomes a little predictable, because you've lost that edge of, right, okay, what are they going to do with Hunt? Are they going to bring him on in the 7 and move Clune out, or what are they going to do? You know now that 20 minutes in, regardless of whether they're up on the scoreboard or down on the scoreboard, Hunt comes in, goes at 9, McInnes goes as a roaming lock and a ball playing loose. Okay, I'm a big fan of ball playing looses, but I just think that it's lost its edge a little now. And you even look to the edges. You got Oldfield and Simonson on opposing sides. You've got a pretty young back line there. So for me, I'd go Nickel Clockstad, anytime try scorer, and the Raiders on even as far out as a -8.5 on the handicap, because I don't see the Dragons keeping with them on this one.
Well, we'll have a cheeky look at sports bet for the time being. I'm pretty sure, just based on the odds, that line is more because they've currently got Dragons $4.10 outsider. The line's 10.5. I'd take that. I'll go Dragons. I'm going to go Dragons plus 10.5 on that. And depending on which side Lomax lines up, I'm going to go Lomax anytime try scorer, because if he lines up against Croker is essentially a turnstile for explosive centres. And if Lomax gets another cutout from Dufty, it's game over.
Okay, then.